issues we're about to discuss are very sensitive issues. And of course, all the athletes that are here today, their identities will be totally protected and totally disguised. The main point of this video is to really address the issues in terms of honesty, education, possibly less abusive features, alternative measures, and so maybe we can have less people dying. It's getting to the point where a lot of my friends are getting injured from the use and the abuse of some of the substances, steroid-like or steroid substances that are being utilized. And I think it's about time that we really address the issues. But it's important to me also that the identity of all my friends who've agreed to participate in this video, their identity be totally protected, and it will be. I've assured them of that, and that their voice and their characteristics will be totally disguised. But nevertheless, what you will see very shortly is the real truth, real factual data, what really happens behind the scenes, the real locker room talk, if you will. The first question I'd like to ask you would be, what brought you to the steroid table, or the steroid, what prompted you to utilize steroids in the first place for the sport?
First, it's like any other type sport. In order to compete with the best guys in the world, you kind of like have to do what it takes to get to the level that they're on. So I figured that in order for me to get on the same level that they're on and be on the same playing ground that they were on, I had to be doing the same thing that they were doing. So that's pretty much how I made my decision to go to the next level.
These are very sensitive issues. I realize that, and please think about them as long as you need to. But I'd like to talk about steroids, of course, as we just mentioned. But what specific steroids have you used, and what do you find most effective, and also dosage?
As far as for me, going back to how I got into it, I didn't know anything about it when I got into the sport, so I figured out the best thing for me to do was to go to one of the guys that were on the top, and see what they were doing, see what he was doing, and try to do the same thing. So the guy that I went to told me some of the things that he was doing, and some of the things that he was doing was primobolan, Winstrol, growth hormone, just regular testosterone, anadrol, and I think as far as that, what he told me, I kind of like took it upon myself to go out and get the same thing that he was doing. Like I said, when I told you first, I wanted to be on the same playing ground that they were on. As far as the dosages goes, I kind of like got with another guy that knew in depth about, how to take certain dosages.
Endocrinologist, or?
No, it's just another guy that was on, that was in the business, but he, one of the top guys. He kind of like knew what they were doing. I didn't want to go to the top guy and say, hey, tell me exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it and all that kind of stuff. Because he probably, kind of made me feel threatened or something. I didn't want to put him on the spot like that. So I just went to another guy that kind of like knew what the top guys were doing. So he just told me, just take primobolan, like 3 a week, and
3 cc's or 3 vials?
3 cc's a week. And then he said, as far as anadrol, you might want to take 1 or 2 a day. So I kind of like went out and started taking like 2 a day, and all of a sudden I kind of noticed that I was getting headaches, so I had to back off and go like 1 a day, because he kind of told me if you get headaches, you know how to back off. And as far as the GH goes, I just went to same guy.
I want to progress to the GH most definitely, but staying with the steroid discussion, let's do you use steroids in the off season and before an event?
I only did for an event, and that was it. I never.
Even right now, just before an event?
Yeah, just even up to this day, the only way I do it is like for an event because.
How many weeks out?
12. I always start at 12 weeks out, which is the same time, you know, I do a diet. I just start that with my diet, and I start with the GH and, of course, the other steroids that go along with it.
So, if we can classify, you mentioned a lot of different steroids. The androgenic steroids, which are have more secondary male characteristics, and clarifying some of these things just for our viewers, and the anabolic steroids, which were more enhancement at a cellular level and less water retention, and maybe you might think less toxic possibly. But would you use the same kind of steroids prior to an? Oh, you don't take steroids. I'm sorry, you don't take steroids. You just mentioned you don't take steroids in the off season, only 3 months prior. So you would take a mixture of anabolic and androgenic compounds prior to an event.
Exactly.
Okay, 3 months out.
3 months out.
Okay, and those, you mentioned some dosages, of course, of the various testosterones and anadrol.
Basically, what we were trying to do is trying to get like 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams per week.
So is there a formula then?
Yeah, what we do is combine like Primo, Bolin with like, they call it Testex. It's like 250 milligrams. And then we do Echo, which is another 200 milligrams. And another one is called Heptalite. It's another 250 milligrams. So what we do is like Heptalite, 250 and 250 is 500, 2 a week. Testex, 3 a week, which is 250, 250, and 250. That's like 750. So we're already up to like 1,000. Primobolan, which is about 100. There's another 300 onto that, so we're close to 1,500 already. And we throw in stuff, you know, like the tablets. We throw in like Primo tabs and like B-ball tabs. So that would pretty much be a cycle that we stay on all the way up to about 8 weeks. No, we do it for like 10 weeks. And like the last 2 weeks, you know, do nothing.
Okay, so the weekly dosage is 1,500 milligrams of combined?
1,500 milligrams combined with GH.
Okay, and the last 2 weeks, no steroids whatsoever?
None whatsoever.
Drop it, there's no descending dosage, just drop it?
Just drop it, drop the cold turkey pretty much. And the GH was the same way. We worked that in like 4 IUs a day.
Okay.
On that, and it was the same way. It was the only one that we took every day. And we did it pretty much like that cycle.
And prior to the event, you stopped the GH too?
Stopped the GH, stopped everything.
I see.
And other things we might use for our appetite was Tricana, and we took 2 of those a day, which is another appetite stimulant. Another one we took was, can't think of the name of it. It's by SmithKline Beecham. It's another appetite stimulant. I'll think of it probably later on.
Okay, so you have a problem with appetite, really?
Yeah, well, no, we just took it just to keep it going, keep it fast. You stay hungry all the time.
So this would enhance your metabolism?
Yeah, this enhances metabolism. So, you know, everything you ate, it went right through you real quick. Your body digested food. So that way you wouldn't hold hardly any fat.
Okay, so this is like a thyroid preparation?
Yeah, exactly.
I see.
So that kind of kept it burning, kept the metabolism going, so you wouldn't hold any fat in it.
Does that stop the last 2 weeks, though?
That stopped also.
I see.
Everything stopped like the last 2 weeks. I mean, you just stopped the cold turkey and just pretty much just finished your workouts, you know, did a little cardio and stuff like that.
Okay, now how about insulin? Is that something you utilize also?
No, only time we did that was carb load phase. That was incorporated like, so you carb depleted for like, started on Sunday, went all the way down to 100 grams carbs. You know, it probably like 600 grams of protein. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. On Wednesday, we called back up with insulin Wednesday and Thursday. Just 2 days.
So the insulin would help
before you fill you back out.
I see.
We took in like a ton of sugars and carbohydrates on that way. Probably took in anywhere from, I say, 600 to 700 grams of carbs.
Wow.
Yeah, real heavy. What we were trying to do was trying to get to a point where we kind of like overcarb, and we use Friday to come back down off it.
Friday to come back down, what do you mean exactly?
Bring it back down to normalcy. On Friday, I did like 600 a day, like on Wednesday and Thursday, and I went back real low on Friday. So we'll come back down and not overcarb.
I see.
You know, that kind of way.
I see. Okay. I guess the next thing we should discuss, which comes to my mind, would be the use of diuretics.
As far as diuretics go, what we do, starting on Sunday, we take like 100 milligrams of aldactone. We did 100 on Sunday, 100 Monday, 100 on Tuesday, and Wednesday. We did probably about 125, 150 aldactone. Thursday, about 150. Friday, we cut aldactone out and went to aldactazide. We probably went about 75 milligrams.
And what's the difference between aldactone and aldactazide?
Aldactone was pretty much to get your body used to taking the water out of it. Aldactazone dried you out. It's the harshest diuretic of them all.
Okay.
So we use that to just completely dry out.
And that was at the very end?
That was at Friday.
Friday.
It was real. You had to be real careful with that one. It would get you to the point where you'd like be high if you didn't do it right. Because I almost screwed up with it one time. Matter of fact, I was up in there.
As far as too many diuretics.
Yeah.
Did we discuss insulin? Did we talk about
Yeah. Only time I did that was just the carb up.
the carb up only?
Yeah, only. That's it.
So you don't think the GH and insulin?
I didn't do the GH insulin thing together.
I see. That's very interesting.
I didn't think I needed that much size, and I was kind of scared of it too.
Uh-huh.
I didn't want to become like insulin dependent.
Do you think some of the guys experienced that?
That was one of the reasons why I didn't want to do it, because I've heard a lot of stories about some guys had become like that. And I was like, oh no, that's the last thing I need.
Well, obviously then you have certain precautions and or concerns about health risks.
Oh yeah. But as far as my health goes, I had my blood work done. I have it done every year. And the last time I had it done, the guy said it was perfect almost. Didn't have any problem with liver, kidney, none of that stuff. And I was kind of surprised because, you know, going into it, I thought that the dosages would like screw up my liver and kidney from the stuff that I've heard.
Sure.
But when he told me that, and you know, the year before that and the year before that, I had it tested, and they were all kind of normal like.
So you approach it pretty much from a systematic point of view, and not that the long duration's not that per year.
No, I don't. I try not to abuse it and get hooked on it where I just have to take it, bring my body up and back down and that kind of stuff. So that's why I just periodically use it just for contests only.
I see.
I've never had to use it in off season. That's a period for my body to get back to normal, basically. I think it's good to like shock the body like that, and when it comes time to take it, then it's something new to your body, so it reacts better. I think. At least that's where it always worked for me. I think everybody's different though.
Has anything ever happened, and of course your identity is disguised here, and none of the viewers will know who you are, but has anything ever happened that really scared you, or any?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, a couple times. The first time it happened, I was taking diuretics, and I was going from one city to another, and I had missed the airplane, So I was on schedule to like be at the contest the day that I was in the air. And so I was up in the air, and all of a sudden, I just got real weak. I started sweating real bad, and I was there by myself. I was in a foreign country. Nobody didn't know what was going on, and I thought, I'm finna die in this airplane. And that scared me to death. But the flight attendant just happened to be walking through at the same time that was happening, and she had some food, and I just grabbed it, and it had a lot of salt in it, and I just started eating and drinking. And it kind of brought my body back to where it needed to be, because I stopped sweating, and, you know, the weakness and all that stuff went away. But it's a real, real scary feeling, especially when you're by yourself. And I was all alone. Nobody was with me. Nobody building. Nobody spoke English, nothing. So I just knew that this was it. That was one time. It's been another time. The other time, I was drying out, and I was in bed. I've been going to the bathroom for about, say about once every 30 minutes. And I probably just, you know, just took in too many diuretics. So it's kind of hard to get the exact science down.
So it's sort of a thing you have to play by ear almost.
Yeah, play by ear almost. And I was laying in bed, and I was getting ready to get up and go use the bathroom because I was going every 30 minutes. I didn't get any sleep. I was getting ready to get up, and a cramp, the worst cramp ever in my life, hit me in my stomach. And I've never had a cramp there before. Like, oh no, I'm finna die right here. But I had somebody there with me, so I wasn't scared. As soon as I moved to grab that cramp, another cramp hit me in my leg. I'm like, oh no. I'm finna ruin my life because this was a big show. I said, I'm finna ruin my life because I'm not doing this contest. I'm going to the doctor right now. That's the first thing I thought, you know. I didn't want to get on stage and have that happen. So that was the worst cramp I ever had in my whole entire life. And I said, I'm not doing this show. I'm going to the doctor right now. But I happened to have a friend in the room with me, and he just said, hey, just start eating. And I grabbed a bottle of water, and I drank the whole, like half a gallon of water. And it went away. But those are the two scariest moments of my life.
Mostly from diuretics?
Diuretics. So I say diuretics is the most dangerous thing. That's dangerous than the steroids. I've never had, you know, any effect from the steroids.
No,
you know, liver, kidney, or nothing.
Now, I understand in the top shows nowadays, it wasn't this way when I was competing, that they test only for steroids. I mean, only for diuretics. Is that the case? Now, you mentioned that you utilized diuretics prior to the event. How do you get around the test?
They test for diuretics, not all diuretics.
Okay.
If you look at the list of diuretics, there's like maybe 100 diuretics on there. There are probably like maybe 120, 130 diuretics out there, you know, in the world. So when you look at the list, of course, they're testing for a whole bunch of diuretics, but you gotta look at the ones that they're not testing for. And those are the ones that you can use. So I don't know if, it's just like with anything else, you know. If you design a test for something, there's always going to be a way around it. It's just like for steroids. If you test it for steroids, there's always going to be some way that you can get around it, because they've done that before too. And the same thing with diuretics.
Now, what you mentioned before, I'm going to step back slightly to where we spoke about, or you spoke about using insulin during the loading up phase, the carving phase of an event. You ever had any ill experiences or negative experiences with insulin?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Yeah, first time I ever did it, you know, you have to eat like a ton of carbs and a ton of sugars all at one time. And so that's what I did. I ate like canned apple pie filling, about 3 or 4 bananas, a whole bunch of dates and raisins, whole bunch of oatmeal with a lot of sugar in it. So I did what I was supposed to do. You know, all of a sudden, you know, like 3 hours later, I'm driving down the street, and all of a sudden I started sweating real bad. And my appetite just started right back up, like I had eaten nothing all day. And I'm like, oh no, here we go again.
Describe the feeling a little bit to us.
Okay, the problem I had with the insulin, I took it like early in the morning, and I took, you know, probably about 500 to 600 grams, no, about 200 grams of carbs at the same time, and it was supposed to like make up for the insulin that I just put inside my body. I didn't know anything about, you know, a reaction that was going to happen afterwards. And I was riding down the street, all of a sudden I started sweating real bad. I started getting real weak. And it was almost the exact same feeling that I had with the diuretic, except I didn't catch any cramps. But I was sweating real bad, and I was getting real weak, and I'm thinking insulin shock. You know, once you get real weak, you know, you lapse into a coma. Just so happened I just had, I don't know, I just happened to have some food in my car with me, and I just started chugging it down real fast. I had rice, some meat, and some bananas and stuff. And after I got that in my system, I got my levels back up to where they need to be, where I can stop sweating and the weakness and the feeling, the weak feeling and all that went away. So that's another thing you got to be careful with the insulin.
Do you find the insulin and then the diuretics being the most sensitive things to utilize?
The most sensitive things are those two things. And not only that, they're the most dangerous. Those are the ones that can kill you quicker than anything, than any kind of steroid out there. The insulin, the diuretics.
How much insulin would you take then a day? I think we may have covered that.
We'll probably do like, we use one called Humminor, and we take like 15 units twice a day.
This is
and when I did
last
that,
week.
Yeah, the last week, like on Wednesday and Thursday. And when you did that, like I said, you had to take about 200 grams of carbs and sugars all together. And like I said, sometimes like two hours, if you didn't take in enough carbs, like 2 or 3 hours later, you have a insulin shock that hit you. And you have to take in a whole bunch more to get over that, to keep you from going into a coma.
It's scary.
Yeah, real scary.
Well, another question I have for you would be, if you're entering more than one show a year, and I understand you do enter more than one show a year, so this, if you're entering, I don't know, up to 10 shows a year, would you be on steroids then more than just prior to the event? Would it be a lot of multiple events?
Yeah, see, like the season starts in February, late February, early March. What we'll probably do is start like in December and get, you know, those 3 months in there, December, January, and February. The shows probably last, maybe you probably go back to back, maybe 3 shows. You like I say, you always get off like the 2 weeks out from the first show. So you just do it all the way up to that point. And for me, I'd rest for like March until the next 3 months before the next show. So you probably do like 2 cycles a year, 2 3-month cycles.
2 3-month cycles, that's shows.
Yeah.
If you enter more than 2 shows, would you be on longer duration?
No, because basically you just use what you had in your system now to go on for those other shows, unless they were like 3 or 4 months apart.
I see.
Most of the shows are like, there's one this week, then there's another one next week, and there's another one the week after that. So you use that same stuff from that you took for the last 3 months for all those 3 shows.
Which another question I would have would be: are there problems you've ever experienced with enhanced estrogen levels? In other words, do you have blocking agents you might utilize during the course of your yearly training protocol?
Yeah. When I was coming up, they always told me that Novax was the best blocking agent out there. And so that's what I took. But we did some studies. I just happened to find a guy that had his own lab and was doing studies on a whole bunch of guys. And we found out that if you took Novodex, it negated the effects of GH. So what we did blood tests, urine tests, and it told us testosterone level, what's it called, GH level, but it's not called GH, it's called
IGF?
IGF level. And we found out that Novodex negated the effects of your IGF level, so Novodex was a no-no. And another thing that we found out, it didn't even work. It probably blocked a little estrogen, but it didn't do the job. So they did some more studies, this laboratory did, they came up with another drug that worked. That drug was called Teslac.
How do you spell that, do you know?
T-E-S-L-A-C. I think, I forget what it's used for, but the study that they did were on adolescent kids that had I can't think of what they had.
Adolescent children with some kind of an illness, growth problem.
In the chest area.
They were cardiac problems?
No, it was called, they called it Gano.
Okay.
This is what they had as kids.
Right.
And they used this drug to test on the kids, see how it affected the Gano, and it made the lumps in the chest go down.
I see.
So this is a drug that we found out after all the studies that worked, and the Novodex was pretty much just a myth. Because number one, it didn't work. Number two, it aided the effects of G8. So I think the best information that I can pass along to up and coming, don't take Novodex.
Okay. How about Clomid?
Clomid works. Clomid, Novodex, Clomid and Teslac. And I think there's one other that I just can't think of, but the one that I thought that really worked was Novodex, and it didn't. It negated the effects of GH.
Okay. You don't feel that there's any significance to insulin making you hold more body fat? That's not a problem.
I think it's probably going to depend on, has a lot probably to do with genetics as far as making you hold a lot of body fat. But for the most part, average bodybuilder, has real good genetics, so it's not going to make him hold that much body fat. Apparently, it works real good on a bodybuilder because it worked real good on me as far as pushing, glycogen in the muscle. So I don't think it makes you, that's why you probably have to use it with GH. And it kind of like negates the fat amount that your body would hold.
Negates the fat amount in terms of insulin.
As far as, your body fat percentage, you probably hold a lot more body fat if you didn't take the GH with the insulin.
I see. I see.
GH also serves as a lean body mass type drug.
Right.
And it would probably help. That's why the two work so good together. But if you just took it by itself, it'd probably just make you fat.
Yeah, right.
But if you got the GH working with it, it help lean you out, and it's going to make you hold more lean body mass.
I see.
And not too much fat.
How about, I guess there's no particular masking agents you use based upon the fact that there's so many, as you indicated, there's so many different diuretics to select from.
There are no masking agents out as far as I know of. I've been around for quite a while. I've talked to all the top guys, all the top trainers. There are no masking agents.
How about compounds like escalene or things that are injected directly into the muscle? Is there anything like that you found to be effective?
I've found escalating to be effective for about maybe 4 or 5 hours at the most, and that's about it. They're supposed to have a new one out called pumping poles, and with a lot of fat. And I think that's all they're probably going to do, because I know some friends of mine that took it, it just made them fat. It didn't make your muscles no bigger or nothing. I think that's like this goes along with the myth of Nova days. It's supposed to work all these wonders, but it really, in actuality, doesn't do a whole lot for you.
So do you ever utilize?
It hurts you more than it works for you.
In terms of these injections, directly injecting into the muscle and temporarily increasing the size, you don't follow that regime.
Never followed that one.
Is there any concerns? I mean, you talked about a few of the situations you've encountered from diuretics or from insulin that scared you. Are there any concerns or advice you would give to the up-and-coming guy who looks at the top guys and says, I want to go there?
Yeah, I got some real good advice. If you're going to take diuretics, get with somebody that knows exactly what they're doing. And when you do take it, make sure you're always around people that know what's going on. Insulin, the same way. Don't go and read some magazine that says, take this amount to do this. Go with somebody that has experienced it, has trained some people, that has trained people to do it, and that knows exactly how it's going to work. And when you take it, never be alone. If you're alone, make sure you have plenty of food and water with you at all times. All times.
Very interesting. On a yearly basis or an annual basis, whether you enter one show a year or multiple shows, I guess it would vary, but how much money does it cost to get in shape? Roughly, I mean, approximately.
Give you a good estimate. 15,000.
15 for for one show.
For one show. One show. That's just for one show. So if you go into a show and the top prize is 10,000, you're going to lose money.
Minus taxes, you're
going to lose money. Either way you look at it. You mainly do the smaller shows to build up your status. That's why it's good for them to put the smaller shows back to back, back to back. If you go, you get first, you're still in the hole.
right.
So if you do the second show and you get first, you made some money.
Okay, I see.
It all depends on how well prepared you want to be. So it's like the more well prepared you are, the better you do.
Do you think that the top pros in the sport can make a good living?
Yeah. That's going to all depend on how well you do in contest. If you're not placing in the top 5, you're going to lose in every show you go to. Point blank. You'll never make any money. So if you're not placing in the top 5 in any show, in any pro show, you're losing money at every show you go to, unless they start increasing the prize money, which I don't see.
That's too bad. Are the exhibitions and the seminars as prominent as they were in the 80s? I was competing in the 80s, and that's why I'm
I'll say it like this. They're prominent, but becoming a professional athlete you get out there, becoming amateur guys you get out there, you're only going to get a small amount because there's so much competition between all the guys. So that'll make up for some of it, but not a whole lot of it.
I see. Are there anything that aren't, that are over-the-counter drugs like Andro? Is that something that or have used or think it's effective?
I think the best two over-the-counter drugs are Andro, HMB, and creatine. And of course, vitamin E, vitamin C, and all the regular vitamins like magnesium and all that kind of stuff that your body kind of like needs to operate on a regular basis to want to work. But for the most part, you know, the proteins work good for me. Creatine works good for me. HMB has worked good for me. All the andro products have worked good for me.
Most of these products you just mentioned, are they used during the prior to competitive time, or when you're not really competing?
I use prior to competitive.
So they actually enhance, you think, the effectiveness of the real drugs?
Yeah, I think so. You know, everybody probably going to have their own opinion, because some people don't use them because they think they're going to get, you know, what they need from just the steroids. But I think they work good hand in hand. They've always worked good for me.
Understand. Well, I sincerely appreciate you coming here today and sharing these really rather sensitive subjects matter with our audience. And again, I want to assure you your identity will be totally protected, and no one will know who you are except myself, which will never be told to anyone. Okay? But hopefully, by one thing, by doing this, we can relate to our viewers and to our audience that, you know, there are some negative connotations or some precautions you
definitely have to take.
Okay, most definitely. And I don't know how you feel about this, but do you really think that steroids create the essence of a champion?
It's just like with any other, sport. You have to have natural talent. You have to have genetics. And of course, with bodybuilding, steroids just going to make it all that much better. So to be, you have to have it.
Okay, so to compete on a level of a pro level.
You have to have it.
Okay. Nobody, you don't know any pros that don't use it.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, probably maybe a couple, but they're not doing top 5 in all the shows. They probably do okay, but once you get to the Olympia level and all the bigger contests, you have to have it. You have to have it to compete. It's just part of the game.
Okay, so what you're saying basically is steroids do work, of course.
Of course.
Are they magic?
They're not magic. You have to train hard. You have to work hard. You have to be dedicated. And you have to do what it takes to be the best. I mean, you can't rely solely on one thing. You can't be one-dimensional. You have to have good genetics. You can't be a top professional without it. You have to work out hard, very hard. You have to be dedicated. You have to adhere to a strict diet. All those things combined makes you a great champion, along with steroids. But you can't have one and not have the other.
Regarding the Teslac and the Clomid and various blocking agents or natural testosterone enhancing agents, is that used in conjunction with the steroids, or is that used when you're off steroids?
Okay, as far as the Teslac goes, that is used in conjunction, and that started the same day that you start your cycle. You can stay on the Teslac as long as you want to, but once your cycle is over with, then you incorporate the other blocking agent, Clomid. I guess because your body is so used to the Teslac and really, build up a tolerance to it, so you want to add something else after the cycle. And Clomid is one to bring your natural testosterone level back up to par, because once you get out of the cycle, it's going to take maybe like 2 to 3 months for your natural testosterone to kick in. Your girlfriend's not going to be happy at all with that. So you use the Clomid, the HCG.
Right. Together?
Together. To kick it back into the cycle. And of course, they have some drugs for the liver also. One is called Legalon, helps bring the liver back up to par. And
in terms of what function? Enzyme.
Yeah, bring the enzyme level back down.
Really?
To a normal level.
This is again done with when you're off.
Once you get off. Legalon is one of them, and milk thistle is the natural one that you can use.
Make milk thistle, I see.
Yeah. And I think that's basically it.
One question I'd like you to respond to, which is not directly related to certain products or drugs. What are your feelings on about, I mean, granted this is where the pros are. This is what the pros are doing, and this is why we're here today to provide this education and this insight. But in terms of how the teenager or the young first-time editor in terms of bodybuilding views the pros, I mean, what is your advice or suggestions, or do you have anything to address in terms of the younger person looking at you guys on stage?
It's the hardest thing in the world to accept as a teenager, that steroids are not gonna make you grow like you want to grow. Because when you're young, you want to be as big as you possibly can be. And you're thinking you want to be as big as you possibly can be, as fast as you possibly can be. And that's where the mistake occurs. You have to, it takes time. Your body doesn't, I think it doesn't start maxing out to you in your late 30s. If you do it right.
And again, I want our viewers to be aware of the fact that we're not recommending or prescribing any of these drugs mentioned or specific dosage patterns. We're not prescribing or recommending any specific dosages or specific drugs. We're merely providing this information and this insight as educational and informative so we can really, for the first time as I see it, address the issues in terms of reality. And I think as we address these issues for the first time in terms of reality, hopefully we can make a difference in terms of some of the abusive procedures that we were speaking about in terms of the teenagers and the younger people looking at the top pros in the world. And maybe even amongst themselves, we can instill a healthier standard of competition, which is important to us all. The first question I'd like to address and ask you quite simply is, what brought you to the steroid table in the first place?
That's an interesting question. I've been involved in bodybuilding since my mid-teens, and I always had aspirations of turning pro, and just dreams of being one of the top professional bodybuilders in the world. But as I improved in my younger years, I found out that I had good genetics for the sport, and I considered that a blessing. So I continued to train hard and work hard. But even in my teens, the steroid issue was, it wasn't something that was hidden so much. It was addressed. It was addressed in that I knew that down the line, in order to remain competitive, I would have to entertain that idea and more than likely start to use them. But I feel fortunate and was taught that the farther I went without them and the harder that I trained without them, the less I would have to take, and just the farther I would go naturally, and the less that I would have to subject myself to. So I really knew about them in my teens before I was even out of my teens, but I personally chose to abstain from them for a number of years before I actually did try them. I remember refusing at one point in '84, and my friends were kind of teasing me with them. Go on, take one. And I'm like, no. Because I just wasn't ready. And in my mind, I wanted to go another couple of years. And I also knew that it was inevitable, based on what the feedback that I was getting from the sport, and also the quality of physique that was on a slightly higher level, the open class level. And it was definitely a different look. But I knew that the basics would come from diligence and hard work and persistence and basically going after what I wanted. So I'd have to say that in my teens is when I really found out about them and really kind of deemed them inevitable, because I did have aspirations of turning professional. So,
what specific stairway do you use?
Well, personally, I've really done well with some of the basic things like you know, your basic testosterone, and there's 3 types that I usually use to cypionate, which is a stronger acting type. There's propionate, which is a faster acting, lighter, oil-based type, and enanthate, which is another faster, it's kind of in between the former 2. I've used, I was taught to balance the what we call androgen type of drugs, which are your strength-building, mass-building testosterones, and couple that with something that was known as an anabolic type, which would be primobolan, which I've used. It was cheap, relatively cheap in comparison to some of the more designer type, for lack of a better term. But I've really gotten a lot of results with the basics, which I would call testosterone, primobolan, dianabol, which is one of the older ones that's been around for quite a number of years. I started using anadrol a few years later, but I really didn't have access to it so much the first 4 or 5 years or so. And I have used halotestin more in my latter years, maybe the second half of you know, the amount of years that I've used them. I've used a number of different types, ranging from, what's it called? Parabolan, which is a kind of in between, kind of has both properties of anabolic and androgenic, but not so much androgenic. It's fairly balanced. The cutting drugs, which are the highly anabolic drugs, and they're used closer to competitions, predominantly your Winstrol, Winstrol Depot, test suspension, which is another water-based, milky type of substance. And the anabolic, highly anabolic drugs were used closer to a competition of water-based ones, because they tended to hold less water under the skin, so you could retain a harder look going into competition. While in the off-season and the months a little farther back from the competition day, you could depend on, you know, the more androgenic oil-based steroids. But I've used Anavar, which is an anabolic, highly anabolic type tablets, which is popular in the mid-70s through the early 80s, up to the mid-80s. I stopped making it. There's also an oral Winstrol, which is also good for the cutting up phase. Some of these are relatively weak, but you have your stronger dosages, like anadrol, which is one of the most toxic, along with halotestin. So I've used all of those at one time or another, and some of them I've always used. I personally always believe that less is more, you know, and I also believe that training hard in the off season would make the difference. next year's competition. But that's not always the mentality of the competitors. Some people think more is better, and some people wouldn't hesitate to take more in hopes of getting more progress. And I think that with the competition just growing, and with more money and more prestige, it does get competitive. It gets extremely competitive, and I think that people tend to pull out all stops from time to time. And I mean, I myself have even taken the attitude of, well, you know, I'm going to drug it up this time and show them. And that wasn't my normal attitude. But when you're involved in it, you are that, you know, and if it's a factor in the game, and it was very much a factor, especially on the national and professional levels. But even on the amateur levels, they have aspirations as high as anyone. And I think it's important for them to learn safety as much as at that beginning level as possible.
Okay, in terms, specifically in terms of dosage, can you give me some idea as far as milligrams that we're talking about here in terms of the steroids?
Okay. Now myself, I could get away with probably a cc of, say, cypionate, which was 200 milligrams, if I could, you know, get a hold of that particular dosage of the bottle, along with an androgenic one. You know, I couple those two together. 1 cc of each. I've really never gone above 1 cc of each, but I have stacked maybe 3 together, you know, at one time. Androgenic type of drug, coupled with, you know, a highly anabolic type of drug, and then, or maybe 2 anabolics, or something kind of in the middle. And that also with usually 2 different types of tablets. Usually a basic anadrol, which is a strength builder and mass builder. Also, it's more of a water retainer. And usually 1 anadrol. I've rarely gone over 1 anadrol, but I have gone 2, but in the latter half of my career. So myself, in terms of dosages, I could really do all of that, you know, because I always trained hard, and genetically that's all I needed. But someone that didn't have as good of genetics as I had, I think would be inclined to, and I have seen people that have been more inclined to increase the dosages. And that's something that's rampant, you know.
So like per week, though, on a weekly basis?
Per week, I could get away with that particular dosage twice a week. I'd hit it probably Monday and Thursday.
That dosage being again?
Again, 1 cc of testosterone cypionate, 1 cc of primobolan, or it depends on basically what anabolic I could get my hands on at that time to go along with the androgenic testosterone mass builder, strength builder.
Is there a difference in the amounts taken or the types of steroids taken versus the on-season versus the off-season?
Off-season could be considered the first months of your preparations for a competition. It could be anywhere from 6 months out. It could be anywhere from 3 months out, depending on where you are and when you decide. It also depends on your point of origin when you're starting, you know, your program to compete.
Do you ever not, I mean, is there ever a time during the year, a number of months, weeks, when you do not take steroids?
Now, in the beginning, I would only take steroids as I started a program for a competition. And in the off season, I would just train naturally and train as heavy and as hard as I possibly could. And I felt that being off allowed my own receptors to come back online, and allowed my own body's physiology to just do its job and stay where it should be, having a more positive effect, when I decided to start the steroids for competition.
So in the beginning it was like 8 weeks out or 3 months?
8 weeks, probably about 3 months. They're primarily 6-week, as I learned it in the beginning, 6-week to 12-week cycles. And then you go off for a month and let your receptors come back online. In some cases they weren't necessarily off, but it's just to give your body a rest from it so that your own system doesn't get how to do its own jobs. As I progressed in the sport and reached higher levels in the sport, you find out that some of your competitors are on a little more frequently. And so you tend to adjust your own levels with the competitors. You see one guy may not be on all year round, but he may be on 6 months before his next competition, as opposed to 3, or as opposed to 12 weeks. I'm sorry, as opposed to 8 weeks or so. So there's a growing competition, and it really boils down to your own discretion and what you feel is safe or what you're willing to do for competition. And the thing is, with prize money and with prestige and status and recognition, it tends to motivate you to do whatever it takes. And I think that's where the scary part comes in, and that's where the potential danger can enter into the picture, especially if you're doing it under your own expertise and you're kind of following the advice of a crap house doctor. This is what you take and you do that and this and that. I've had doctors' advices in the beginning, and after a while you kind of learn a little bit of, you basically learn what not to do in the beginning, and after that it's kind of use your own discretion.
So 6 months would be probably the most you might take steroids in a year's time, or would that vary?
I would say that would be the most, but I have to be honest and say that there are times during the year when I might be doing exhibitions and I might just want to look a little fuller or just look my best during the exhibition season. So I have to be honest and say that there are times that I have extended or kind of jumped on a little bit, not to get me in shape, but just for that extra little edge, that extra fullness or extra 10% of whatever it gives you.
What's the annual cost? Well, what's your estimate? What's your approximate estimate of your annual cost, money-wise, dollar-wise, to get in shape for a major event of the year?
For a big one as a professional, I think minimum it's going to cost you roughly $5 grand, $5 to $6 grand, depending on your own particular dosages and appetites for it. Some people have access to much more. I've met guys that move it, and so they have access to much more. They can experiment on themselves, and they could basically try whatever they wanted to because they had access to it.
So some of the guys spend a lot more than that.
A lot more. That was what I could get by on. Sometimes it was rarely less than 5, and that was I think a minimum.
What is I know we're going beyond your own situation here, but in your estimation, how much do some of the guys spend?
Oh, 15 grand, easily. I know one champion in particular that used to spend minimum of 100,000.
100,000? Per year to get in shape?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's including GH and.
Yes. But it would also include any and every little supplemental assist drug
that would help. It may be something that helps tighten the skin, some mucase, or various types of assisting. It could be inflammatory drugs. There's even something out now that it's been out probably a year and a half, called Synthol, and it's supposed to be a step beyond the original inflammatory drug, which was aceclidine, and that's, you know, water-based, and, you know, it's actually an irritant. You know, it irritates the muscle, and it inflames for a couple of days.
These drugs, you can, like escalin, we can actually inject it into the muscle.
You inject it directly into the muscle,
and it increases the size of the muscle for a short period of time.
Right, very short period of time, a couple of days or so.
Is that used quite a bit by most of the guys?
Yes. Now, because, and I'm sure there's some people that don't care for it, but it's a little something, just a little bit more polish. And if you have a weak area that's stubborn, or an area of a muscle that you'd like to change the shape, whatever. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not going to put a muscle in a place where the muscle is not there, but it can enhance the shape or add a little bit more fullness to an area that otherwise is just not quite up to par genetically, or whatever. I mean, I've hit muscles in areas only. I mean, we're talking the week before the show. You know, when I'm already in shape, I'm already as developed as I'm going to be. But when you find out that your competitors are doing that, and you're in a realm of looking your best on that day, and those are probably a lot less harmful than the actual anabolics. But the Synthol, that's something that's being used now, and there's a professional that was in the premier competition, the Olympia this year, that has Synthol in his arms, and it doesn't look natural. There's a discoloration from prolonged use. They don't flex. So, but for all practical purposes, it increases the fullness and the shape, but it's so obvious, yet it's allowed. And it's kind of disheartening, but that's allowed.
How long does the effects last from this particular drug?
I've never used that one myself, but I read a couple of articles on it, and I understand that you have to do it, that you do, I think, every week or every other week or something like that, and you do it in various parts of the muscle.
Now, in terms of growth hormone, how many IUs per day would that be?
I have gotten away with less is better. I've used more at times and didn't necessarily get a desired effect. I have heard also that prolonged use of GH and seen evidences of it expanding your organs, making your waist wider, basically, in essence, making your waist wider and expanding your organs and changing your physique.
Okay, specific dosages, can you be...
For me, the first time I tried it, it was something like every other day, starting the 10 weeks out for a competition. I've never taken them more than 12 to 10 weeks before, because I've been taught that longer than that, you will give your organ a chance to expand and widen your waist.
So how many IUs per day?
IUs per day. For me, let's see, IUs. Probably about no more than 2 for me.
Some guys take a lot more.
Some guys take a lot more. I know professionals that have taken as much as 9. Even some I've heard as much as 12 or 15. And to me, that just boggles my mind. I can't conceive of that, or the need to. And I don't believe that that's going to produce what they're trying to produce with it. I don't think it's going to create shape. I think it basically will just raise your tolerance and cause you to have to take more.
Do you take GH, or in your opinion, is GH to be utilized off-season or prior to the show?
Prior to the show, more often. I think in the off-season, unless you're getting ready for something in particular, a certain project where you require a certain look, I think it's waste. You do tend to expand your muscle cells in that you can keep muscle that you put on with it. Whereas sometimes with anabolics, if you don't keep eating, or if you don't keep busting your butt and feeding yourself and maintain the training, you know, in any case, you could lose weight or not keep the muscle. But with the GH, it's supposed to expand, increase the muscle cells so that you actually hold on to the new muscle that you put on. And in many cases, it's not always so much as putting on new muscle. In some cases it is. In cases you're lucky enough to just have the right combination of training, nutrition, rest, the whole 9 yards, setting the proper conditions for muscle growth. But it's something that
How long would you take GH? How many weeks or months?
Personally, for me, 10 to 12 weeks. And no more than 12. And
that being 2 cc's a day, approximately?
2 cc's. I've taken maybe 1 cc a day, or 1 IU a day, and that's worked. But I also was taught that to have a day in between is better. So you can go 2 days on, 1 day off, which can work really well. And I've also split up the dosages. Like I've done once in the morning and once in the afternoon, and then that's enough. Splitting up my dosages over 2 times rather than just taking it at 1 pop. And I've also taken it just before bed and just training. Now, insulin. That is its partner in crime. After trying GH with anabolics, I had a phenomenal effect. Brought my physique to a new level of definition. It had been told that it was so much easier to prepare, that it would eat fat and this and that. I mean, a lot of the stories were blown out of proportion. Oh man, you have to eat junk food. You can eat junk food and everything and just get totally shredded, you know, and that doesn't make sense, because the cleaner you eat, the better you're going to look. But
so with the
GH.
GH and the insulin together, you could eat it.
Now, that's a horse of a different color. Now, as you see certain qualities of physique, you begin to notice minute differences. Maybe a little bit more fullness here, maybe a sick-looking roundness that this other guy may have. And then you find out and understand that it's a tight-lipped dispersal of information, because everyone's so secretive and competitive, and if you're a threat, then you're even less likely to get it firsthand. But as I found out about insulin and was shown or explained how to use it, there are dangers in using it, because it's definitely something that you don't want to do haphazardly, and you don't want to get your own insulin, you know, out of joint. But I did try insulin during a competition training phase coming into a show.
So insulin is only before the show, or is it during the off-season as well?
I hope it's only before. You know, with me, it was just before, and it was only for a certain amount of weeks. It was a phenomenal response. I had fullness like you wouldn't believe. And I have round muscle bellies to begin with naturally, but it even took what I have naturally to a different level. A different fullness, different roundness, different pump type and intensity. It was incredible, and it was definitely a vast, marked difference.
Dosage?
Dosage. Okay, there are two types of insulin predominantly that people use. There's a fast-acting R and a slow-acting N. N works over a period of hours, slowly released into your body. And the R is the fast-acting insulin that actually kicks in relatively soon. We're talking minutes to half an hour. The danger is you definitely don't want to come into a carbohydrate deficit because you will go into an insulin, you will have what's called a reaction. And I had it described to me, the reaction. It is a suffocating sort of feeling. It's actually, you get heavy, your breathing gets erratic, you start sweating like crazy. You know, it feels like you're inside a plastic bag almost. And you need to get simple sugars into your system as soon as possible. So what happened was the dosages, actually, we're talking a tenth. A tenth
of a measurement.
Of a
So
very minute amount. Doesn't take much at all.
per day?
No, per time. Per day, I think I tried this slow acting, the slow releasing in the morning. I'm going to try to recall how I did it, but I think it was one of each different times of the day. It was not together.
Twice a day?
Twice a day. Once before training and once in the afternoon before your second session. But I have heard of people taking it after they train, you know, in order to quickly replenish and just suck everything into the muscle. I've recommended that you take protein with it after that. But myself, I was taught that you don't need to go over a tenth. And when you do start going above that, that's when you start playing with fire. And that's when you enter a danger zone. So I've always been pretty good about heeding guidelines. And I'm thankful for that. You know, I wasn't caught up to the point of, well, you know, one did this, then three is going to do that. That's how people get hurt, you know, and that's how people really damage themselves and put themselves in a danger zone. And it only takes one good time to blow it. And, you know, I didn't want to lose my life and all of that. In doing it, I was stepping into a new level of attitude, you know, if you will, for the sport. You know, and it makes you ask yourself, okay, what am I willing to do to win, and what aren't I willing to do? Now, myself personally, I only did it for probably 2 preparations, and I didn't do it all the way up into the show. I stopped 3 weeks before the show because it did hold water.
So a total of how many weeks then?
Total probably 5 or 6 weeks. It did help some gains, but
You stopped before the show, you said?
yes, I stopped about 3 weeks before the show.
I see.
It did hold some water, but I know people that compete on it and they step on stage with a big full look, and probably the guys that you see that are always full, but they don't possess the deep delineations that they used to as an amateur, and you see them always getting bigger, and their waists also, if I could name names. But actually, after the second time that I tried it, I had about 3 weeks to go before the show. Now, 6 weeks out, I was looking phenomenal. I had no qualms about anything. It was working perfectly. And 3 weeks before the show, I had my body fat checked, and I looked pretty good, but I wasn't as crisp as I thought I should be 3 weeks before the show. With the amount of aerobics that I was doing and everything else, I felt I should have been a little crisper. I looked great, you know. But I had my body fat checked, and it was higher than it should have been. So I learned that the insulin does promote fat storage. So I had to stop that, lower my carbs, increase my aerobics, really break my neck to get in shape and salvage what I had started, all these months of preparation for the competition.
So you might use insulin in the off season as well as on season.
Oh yeah, you can. You know, it improve your pump, even your maybe protein synthesis, even the way the carbs load into your body. I mean, it's just jammed into the muscle. And then by the next competition, I thought, you know what? I don't need this. You know, I don't need the risk. Excuse me, and I don't need, I have muscle. You know, I'm known for full muscle or density or whatever I have. And I thought, do I need this to have muscle? No, I've been training for, 20 years. I don't need this. I don't need the risk. But I mean, that was my personal choice. I could use it. Now also insulin will enable you to carb up on sugars and look great. I mean, as a matter of fact, at times it's recommended just because you need simple sugars to pop the veins and everything and to really trigger it for the desired effect. But there's a way to do that, and there's a way that you can blow it as well. But there are people that, there's one athlete that went into insulin shock this year at the Olympia.
Insulin shock, what does that mean?
It means that you get caught out on a limb without enough carbs and simple sugars in your bloodstream, and your body needs it, and the insulin drives up the consumption of it at a rapid rate, and it's that fast-acting R. Uses them up real quick and loads it into the muscle, so that's why diabetics have these sugar tablets that they can pop.
You faint to go into a coma?
Oh, you can lock up. I mean, you can just lock up. This particular athlete had problems with cramping and see, if you're dehydrated along with all of that, I think you're opening up for more competitions. This athlete was ushered to the hospital and pumped full of saline and electrolytes, and he's fortunate. I'm glad he was out in 3 hours. But
anything scary to you ever happen like that? Anything like any certain drug you go, well, that's a terrible reaction.
Let's see. I've had a reaction before, not a big one, and I think it's because I didn't take these grandiose dosages. But I've had a reaction to where I'm like, what is this? Oh, excuse me, this is weird,
Insulin, though.
Yeah, but
describe the feeling you had.
Lightheaded. You break out into a sweat. You feel like you're in a jar. You feel totally uncomfortable. You feel like, and you feel hot and short of breath, and you feel like something's wrong, and feel lightheaded and tingly, almost like pins and needles. And I was fortunate. I didn't have a big one, but I knew something, was wrong, and I had carbs. And that's something that makes you think also. I've had close friends that were a little bit more free and loose with it. They took a few more chances, they've competed on it, they've carved up on it. To me, it was just one of those things that it's just, what am I gaining from it? And I could have, my last few competitions, maybe have used it, maybe have been in a totally different half of the placings. Maybe I could have been higher and everything, but for myself personally, I can see my wife at my funeral not knowing why I'm dead, and because I wanted to win like a few $1,000s.
That's a concern.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, I thought about all of that. And it's like, you think I shared it with her? No. Because why? Because she probably would have told me, look, that's dangerous, I don't like you doing that, and it would have been a valid concern, and she would have had every right as a wife to say that, you know, to express that concern, and it was dangerous. And, but you will rationalize things to yourself in the name of doing better for your family. And that's an unfortunate thing, because with the increased usage and advancement in scientific warfare, chemical warfare involved in this sport, a lot of times it's greater risks. And you may tell yourself and rationalize that you are doing it for your family, or that you are, you know, trying to take care of your home and whatever, but I really just wasn't comfortable with, it was, number one, undependable. Number two, very dangerous. Number three, it's just something in me that just didn't think it was worth it. You know, if I had a certain type of physique where I had trouble being seen on stage or something like that, that's one thing. But I've got the physique that I've always wanted. And even to place higher, it just seemed so, shallow, you know, to take that much risk. You know, and I think you have to look at things like that. And there's safe ways to do it, but the safest way is, I mean, you think that to be on stage, we should be tampering with elements and substances in our bodies that, I mean, like thyroids and insulin levels and things like that. That stuff is like tinkering with your internal wire, your internal circuitry. And I just don't think that we're really meant to do that. And you hear rumors of people that, you know, I've heard one rumor that one guy has turned himself into a diabetic, and it could just be a rumor. Or there could be some truth to it. And I know this guy's a known insulin user and by it.
Okay. Well, how about things like diuretics? Are they used?
Diuretics. Diuretics have really been a real supplement in terms of the competition peaking. As of, I believe, about 2 to 3 years ago, it's really been addressed by the premier sanctioning body of the professional competitions. And we've actually had the pro shows, many of them tested for diuretics. Nowadays, there's a banned substance list. And get this, it's not steroids, it's diuretics. Because strangely enough, they're doing it because they care about us. But they don't check for steroids. How about that?
So there's no steroid testing done at the major pro shows?
No, there's not.
So you don't need masking agents to...
No, you don't. Now, there's been a couple of years that they tested the waters, and the qualities of the physiques were definitely downgraded by that, but you would expect that for the first time, you know, and people will figure out ways to look better naturally. Just as diuretic testing, there's been, you know, forces you to go back to older ways, like combining vitamin B6 with vitamin C, which is, you know, an old way of flushing water out. There's herbal diuretics that you can take that are not so harsh. There's some potassium-sparing diuretics, but the ones that were being abused were Lasix, which indiscriminately pulls water from your body. And people will take it to get that harder, rock-hard granite look. Now, your body's 70% water. So if you just go pulling it out of everywhere, you're going to be pulling it out of organs, you're going to be pulling it out of tissues and things that you need, your brain. But for that question about diuretics...
Again, dosage.
Dosage.
Just before the show? Or
just before the show.
How long before the show?
Usually, the most common and the safest is a potassium-sparing diuretic called aldactone, which helps you, it spares the potassium in your body so you don't cramp up so much and doesn't throw your electrolyte balance off so much, but it can be abused. And at one time, myself personally, one show, the first time, someone told me how many to take. They had given me a certain dosage.
What was it?
Dosage, I believe, and now I'm guessing from memory, but I can explain what actually happened. They gave me maybe, let's just say they gave me 100 milligram tablets. I started off with half for a couple of days because you gradually introduce it into your system for a couple of days. Then the third day, maybe one whole for a couple of days. And then there's 4 days. So this is just the final week before the show for 4 days. And then I maybe go up to 1.5 on Friday night or 2 on Friday.
So starting before, it's a week before the show, you're saying?
Right.
And
usually the Monday or Tuesday before that competition.
half every day.
Right.
And then maybe when do you start a whole every day?
Right. Now,
what day would you start a whole?
Start a whole probably Wednesday. You know, you start half and increase. Now,
you won't stop. You take diuretics all the way through the show.
Right, all the way up to the competition day. And when you start coming off, you start to send not, you know, you don't have to go back down to 1, and then, but you could go half and then a half, just so your body won't rebound, you know, when you need to be taking pictures. Your body's reacting to it not being in your substance, because you are manipulating it, you know, to flush out water. And you get hard, boy. You get rock hard. It's a very valuable tool, but it has been abused. There has been people taking far too much just to get that rock hard granite sliced up anatomy chart look, but at the same time they're throwing their electrolytes so far out of balance that it's literally dangerous to be up there. Now, as good as they look, or we look, you know, I'm not pointing the finger because I was in it. As good as you look up there, you are so unhealthy at that time because your electrolytes are out of balance. It's so hard to perform up there because you're so dehydrated, you're lightheaded, and you look fantastic. When I was younger, before I won the state level and you know, and what have you, someone had given me some diuretics that they had gotten. I was at this girl's house and she had them, and I forget where I even got them, but they were red. I didn't know a thing about them. I took 1, and I may have taken 2, and I was close to a show, already low carbed, and I remember waking up in the middle of the night. It felt like my jaws were like being sucked in, you know, and actually it was an electrolyte imbalance to where my muscles were contracting by themselves. I mean, I woke up in the middle of the night like scared to death. I'm like, what is happening? You know, and I got up and went in the bathroom and looked, and I looked great, by the way. So, I mean, I just took some salt, you know, because I didn't know what to do, but something said, well, take some salt, eat something, you know. So I ate, and then it subsided. And then, you know, the next day, I'm like, you know, I just got rid of it.